Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about what everyone seems to be talking about.
COVID 19. You know what that is, right? Become a very famous term. COVID, COVID.
Yeah, as we all know, this pandemic has hit the world a lot harder than anyone would have expected and has shown us just how unready we are for a crisis of this magnitude. Just to give you a few statistics, this image was taken from world meters, and as you can see, where we were initially worried about China, then Italy, then the rest of Europe, we are now worried about the United States, who has become the epicenter of this pandemic, with New York being hit the hardest. Now, to date, with over 1 million global confirmed cases and 50,000 deaths, this pandemic is not to be taken lightly. This has had massive ramifications on the global economy, where oil prices have dropped to their lowest price in 2 decades, being at just over $27 per barrel. Trade has reduced significantly, and unemployment is at an all-time high, with 6.6 million Americans filing for unemployment just last week. Just take a look at that. Have you ever seen anything like that? Now, small businesses have also been suffering, being unable to make ends meet, but in response, Trump has signed a $2 trillion coronavirus stimulus bill to help support the economy and its well-being. We are for sure in uncharted territories. Looks like The Simpsons did it again. But in all seriousness, if you take a look, for example, at small island nations who heavily depend on tourism, now have empty hotels, lonely beaches, and without travel, their economy tanks. To add insult to injury, the International Labour Organization estimates that 25 million jobs could be lost. This, of course, being very counterproductive to the No Poverty SDG. On the plus side, there has been fewer littering, rivers are clearer, there's been a decrease in emissions of pollutants, which in turn affects the air quality, providing us therefore cleaner air. We are slowing down greenhouse gases, and finally, we're just reducing global warming. Maybe this pandemic is Earth's way of saying enough is enough.
How dare you!
Now, I want to take a second and focus on the United States and talk about how the current situation and what's being done to manage it. As I'm sure all of you are aware, the United States are overwhelmed with patients, and if not at capacity, already are over it or getting very close to it. This has required many urgent responses using schools, some hospitals, and even cruise lines are chipping in to provide makeshift hospitals to help cope with the influx of patients in local hospitals that just cannot take in anymore. And I feel sorry for those who are sick with different diseases and are unable to receive treatment. Like, what do you even do? Adding on to this, many other states participated in donations of supplies where they can, manpower, and crucial resources. It wasn't until just yesterday that Trump signed a paycheck protection program that is going into force as of today, April 3rd, 2020.
Relief to American workers and small businesses, as you know. I want to remind small business owners across America that the Paycheck Protection Program is launching tomorrow. Nearly $350 billion in loans will be available to small businesses, including sole proprietors.
Yeah, you heard that right. $350 billion in loans to help supplement and help the situation so that businesses can strive as usual. I mean, what this pandemic has shown us is that making business calls from home is not all that bad. We get to avoid traffic, so hey, glass half full, right? Trump has also invoked the Defense Production Act, as reported by a CNN official.
President Trump today saying he'll invoke the Defense Production Act for 6 major medical device companies to speed up the production of ventilators. That's the latest from NBC's Dartunoro Clark. The president's memo gives the authority to streamline the supply chain in order to help meet the demand unfolding during this coronavirus pandemic.
This will be able to provide much needed ventilators to New York to help them alleviate and eventually contribute to flattening the curve, and provide much help needed for those who haven't been able to receive it thus far. So, could this virus result in worse effects than the crisis of 2008? I mean, COVID-19 pandemic is having knock-on effects that are showing some similarities with the previous crisis. I mean, the credit markets have frozen, corporate bonds have tanked in value, and even though we could argue we're still in the early stages, if we compare to the early stages of the 2008 crisis, this pandemic has already passed financially and the economic strain of the 2008 crisis, and has put us statistically to show signs that it's only going to be getting worse. The silver lining in this is that scientists have agreed to work together and share information immediately as they focus on finding a cure for this virus. So maybe there is hope after all. Moving on, I wanted to talk about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, and their link to COVID-19. One exceptional goal is number 17, being partnerships, is coming to fruition as the world is working together, be it civil society, government, or private sector. Everyone's sharing information and looking to solve the problem that's bigger than all of us, which I think is great. With many countries following suit in light of the quarantine, the Secretary General has made an urgent appeal for an immediate global ceasefire in all corners of the world, and for a united international effort to combat the pandemic that is ravaging the world. So, putting wars on hold, international disputes and people's differences aside, social distancing and stay-at-home orders really do help improve the situation, provide good health and well-being to not only those in isolation, but to limit the spread for those who seek treatment for the disease and getting what they need to combat the virus as we expand resources for treatment. Also reducing inequality to women, children, and elderly alike, where the United Nations included a $2 billion humanitarian appeal that the United Nations will launch on Wednesday, which will also oversee limiting exposure to refugee camps so the virus doesn't get there. Now, with that all being said, there's one thing that I haven't been able to shake off my mind. With the casualties this virus has imposed on us thus far, even though banks are currently limited, each country is doing what they can to try and help support their population, be it financially or economically, passing bills to provide some level of UBI, which is universal basic income. The stress this takes on the economy is not to be underestimated. The financial strain this will put on each government in having to print more money could lead to huge depreciation of their respective currency, taking away potentially from their own federal reserves and treasuries, increases in loans, and finally higher interest incentives. What is to happen next is still yet to be seen. Hopefully we will find a vaccine as fast as possible, but the longer it takes, the longer the global economy will tank. So thankfully the world is coming together, and I do hope the repercussions on the banks are not too heavy and that the economies will be able to get through this. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and of course stay safe, regularly wash your hands, and I will see you guys on the other side.